Alright, I got another anniversary video, but it's gonna be a review as well. It's the first Spider-Man movie that came out in 2002. That's right, it turned 20 years old this year. I know I'm late on the release date, but I had to put up the Avengers 10-year anniversary video a few days ago, so I had still had time to edit and all that stuff. But I am ready to talk about this movie since this was the first one in the series before the other Spider-Man movies would come along. So let's begin with the story. The film chronicles the origins and career of Spider-Man. Teenager Peter Parker gets bitten by a genetically altered spider. He develops his abilities to give spider-like superhuman powers. He enables to fight crime and injustice in New York and faces off the villain Green Goblin in the process. So yeah, it's like an underdog superhero story, but for what it is, it's fine. The stories do get better in the later Spider-Man films. The characters are enjoyable for what they are, but as for the writing for the characters, they're not well written. I mean, yeah, Peter Parker is a genius, but I wish he wasn't goofy. Mary Jane is fine too, but it's the damsel in distress thing where she gets captured and Spider-Man has to save her. Green Goblin's a nice over-the-top villain, but maybe a little too silly. When it's with Norman Osborn, he's great, but when he's Green Goblin, he goes silly mode. Again, I don't hate the villain, it's just a gripe. I will say, the casting is pretty good. Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker was a good choice. If people think he was born to play the role, that was a good first casting, before Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland would later play Peter Parker in later movies. Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane was a good choice. Willem Dafoe did a great job playing Norman Osborn, but only in the human form. That scene with the alternate personality in the mirror, that is pretty cool. Just look at that face, that looks sinister. But it does give me creeps, but in a good way. Also, James Franco plays Norman's son, Harry Osborn, which, that was a good choice. This was before Franco would do comedy movies and other great roles. So yeah, he did a fine job in the movie. Sam Raimi directed this movie, which, who knew a guy who did the Evil Dead movies from the 80s and directing the trilogy? It's bizarre to pick a director like that. So now let's get to other parts of the movie. The visual effects, which for 2002, it's fine, but it doesn't hold up. The scene where Spider-Man's swinging in the balloon parade, it just looks phony to me. Which, funny enough, while I haven't seen No Way Home yet, people say the visual effects are not good in that movie either. Maybe the Spider-Man series is difficult on visual effects. I don't know. The movie has a silly vibe to it, but it is dramatic too. This is when comic book movies were starting to get better. In the late 90s, comic book movies were getting panned by critics. Thankfully, the new decade, 2000s, started to change when X-Men started first. So yeah, for a first Spider-Man movie, it's pretty good. And while I was young since it came out, I was 7 at the time, it was cool to see it. While I had to watch it all the way through for the video, still, I can't say it's the best, but still a good start for the franchise. So, with my review out of the way, let's get to the popularity on the movie. It was praised with critics back then, and this was before the follow-up sequel would get the same amount of praise. It had 2 nominations at the Oscars. It made a great amount of money when it came out. Not as high as the later ones like the MCU movies, but that was a good way for the superhero genre, at over $825 million worldwide. So yeah, thanks to Sony, Spider-Man and its series continues on, and pretty soon I have to review the sequels, but I will do them in future videos, so you will be definitely seeing them. So yeah, that is all for the video on Spider-Man 2002, both as a review and an anniversary video. Soon, the second one will get its own video in a couple years. I will see you guys next week for a new video.